Sandy is a thoughtful, kind Christian woman. Sandy's parents wanted to raise her right and told her to not be like those people who were racist and did violent things to Americans of color. They told her to be colorblind and that everyone was the same. As a result, Sandy grew up being the poster child for colorblindness. Sandy is white. Her best friend growing up is black. Sandy was friendly to everyone she knew. She wrote a passionate essay for a high school competition about how colorblindness is the answer to the country and the world's problems. Imagine her surprise when she didn't win. When Sandy got to college, she again made friends of color. And one day her classmates shared about racism that he had encountered for being black on campus. Sandy knew what to say. She reached out, touched his shoulder and said, "Oh, Michael, when I see you, I don't see your color." And Michael's quiet response unnerved her. "If you don't see my color, you might as well not see me at all." Sandy thought she was trying to say, hey, me and you, we're equal. We're both human beings deserving of dignity. We're the same. But what Michael heard instead was invalidation. "I don't see you. I don't want to acknowledge the broken experiences you have, experiences that are different from mine, and I don't want to acknowledge the beautiful and different parts of who you are." We all know a Sandy. We might be or have been Sandy. Colorblindness was taught in our schools as well as our churches for decades. However, in the wake of recent racially and ethnically charged incidents across the country, whether it's the highly publicized deaths of black men and women that are unarmed at the hands of law enforcement, or the white supremacist Tiki Torch rally in Charlottesville, we're seeing that our world, though diverse, it's not colorblind. Colorblindness, though well-intentioned, offers no real strategy for actual learning about ethnic difference or injustice that affects different communities. Instead, we hear about hate crimes and unjust policies targeting black and brown people, immigrants, and refugees. Colorblind diversity, it just leads to chaos. Instead of color blindness, I propose that instead we need to become ethnicity aware. We live in a time of our country's history that feels surreal. It's 2017 and white supremacists show with hoods, right? Without hoods or face masks. Sexual assault is live and well, and our country is a house divided, no less than the time of Lincoln or the Civil Rights era. And we feel helpless and confused. Jesus lived in a similarly ethnically divided, chaotic time. His people had been conquered, enslaved, and deported for 600 years, leaving only the poor, widows, and the elderly. The occupying Greek and Roman empires punished any attempt at protest and uprising with mass executions, crucifixions of would-be zealots who watched their wives and children slaughtered in front of them as they hung dying. Jesus' Jewish Israelite people faced centuries of tension with their Samaritan neighbors, whom they regarded as ethnic half-breeds. Josephus, a contemporary of Jesus, writes that when a Samaritan defaced the Jewish temple by throwing the bones of the dead over the temple walls into the courts, the outcry was so great that the only way to quell the rage was to publicly execute the highest presiding Roman officer. Jesus knew the cry of a mother who lost her son to government-sanctioned brutality, the cry of a people whose land was stolen from them. He knew the reality of how hard it is to be neighbors with the ethnic other, how difficult it is to befriend across cultures. Jesus was a refugee and an immigrant. He was thought to be less than because he had an accent from a backwoods province called Galilee. And yet Jesus brought together the tax collector sellout and the political activist zealot into his following of 12 leaders. He shared good news with a Samaritan woman who was regarded as a social failure by her own village. He helped heal and address the concerns of a Roman centurion, a squadron leader who asked for his servant, a friend, to be healed. Jesus loved his people and he challenged their idols, their ethnic and ideological divisions, and he did the same with ethnic strangers and enemies. The thing was that Jesus was not colorblind in these interactions. He and the Samaritan woman talk about historic ethnic tensions between their people, and he addresses ethnic and cultural difference with Greeks, Romans, and Israelite Jews alike. Jesus was not effective as a leader because he was colorblind. It was because he was ethnicity aware. He knew that he was a Jewish Israelite, and he knew the history of his people and those around. Our best way of addressing the conflicts that surround us and our children is to become aware of our own ethnic stories vis-a-vis the stories of those around us. Teaching your children to be colorblind does not equip them to be cross-cultural, to face racial conflict. In fact, they often won't know what to say other than to be shocked again and again. I think it's time for us to stop being shocked and helpless in our response, because unredeemed ethnic stories will only perpetuate brokenness, whether we mean to or not. We need to know that we are made well, intended for good, but that so many of us and our loved ones are affected by prejudice, racism, pain, injustice, and brokenness. And instead of silence, we need to learn and reflect on our own ethnic stories and to enter into the stories of others with humility, with a learning posture in prayer. This will make us better pursuers of reconciliation and justice. And it's not about being perfect. It's having the courage to step forward in humility, to commit. Okay? We live in a time where there are a lot of opinions about what it means to be Black, white, Asian, Native, Latino, Middle Eastern, mixed heritage. If you are a Christian, what difference does Jesus make in your ethnic story? If he doesn't, are you comfortable having a part of your life that God doesn't touch? And if you're exploring Jesus or faith, how could God bring healing to your ethnic journey? Remember our friend Sandy? That conversation with Michael was a wake-up call for her that led to deeper prayer, learning, humility. Sandy started to learn about her friend's experiences that differed from her own. When a racist incident happened, she learned to ask, amidst the discomfort, "How are you doing? I'm so sorry this happened. I don't know what to say, but I will walk with you. How can I care for you?" Sandy's friendship and bond with Michael became far deeper than what it had been before. During the immigration debates and travel bans, Sandy would check in on her Latino and Middle Eastern friends, pray with them, advocate for their needs, not just on Facebook, but in their church and in their neighborhood. And she helped her community see what they were blind to. And later, she became the godmother to the children of those friends. Sandy started to see the beauty in the cultural differences around her and learned how to be hospitable, not just in the ways that she was used to, but in learning the values and cultural preferences of others. And this changed how she led. And she started to see her own story as one that Jesus treasures and was calling her to steward for incredible good. We're having these conversations because we're interested in loving our neighbors, right? And love is not passive. It's embodied in human presence and connection. You can be colorblind and have no significant relationship or commitment to someone different from you. But in order to be ethnicity aware, to really know the other, we need to show up, to engage in their story. And to love others well, we need to learn about and reflect on the stories around us, to get to know our friends past surface level interests, to ask them about their ethnic and cultural experiences that are different from ours. We need to read and learn from books like The New Jim Crow, Welcoming the Stranger, and the stories in my book, Beyond Colorblind. Love is active. It's not a disembodied idea. It requires relationship, real people, real time. So I invite you to move beyond colorblindness so that you can love others more authentically, deeply, and honestly. Because we can't help heal what we don't know, and therefore what we have yet to love. And may this help bring the transformation and healing that we long to see in our nation. Thank you.